Life is hectic, demanding, and doesn't stop. When honest with ourselves, we must confess we often don't know what the hell we're doing. The Larkcast is an ongoing conversation about the inclusive and mischievous nature of God's presence through the lens of all the things that make up this phenomenon we refer to as life. Astonishing grace and refreshing honesty collide right here for your weekly encouragement.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right. Welcome back to the Larkcast. What's up, Russ?
What's up, man? How you doing this morning?
Good.
Good.
I'm good. I got a new coffee subscription from a place in Indianapolis after supporting a local friend for like 4 years. All I did was drink one coffee from her roastery, and I was kind of dreading telling her. You know who I'm talking about. Yep, small town.
Are you talking about this place right here?
Right there. And I
That's
was like,
funny.
hey, I've been kind of dreading telling you this, but I've been drinking your Ethiopian for like 4 years. I get like 2 pounds a month, part of their like coffee club. And I was like, I think I want to drink, something different, have a little variety. But you feel bad because it's like your friend, so you have like,
Yep.
You're nervous to tell her. So I'm mixing things up.
Yeah, it seems to, and I love that you're just like going for it, man, in your older age. Just,
Just
if I
living
need some,
wild.
just, I really, I need to take things to the edge here. And to do so, we're just gonna start drinking a different coffee.
But I've been watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm like in season 4, and I
Uh-uh.
I so connect with that show. It's like the premise of, an episode. Like you're so nervous to like, tell a friend, but then they don't take it well like she did. She was like, "Yeah, good. It's all good," like I'm the same way. But you like build it up in your mind. You're like, "Oh man, I want to like, support my friends, support a small business."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you can just picture in that show like the character just not taking that well.
Yeah, dude.
Then it turns into like a whole thing.
Well, you could probably imagine her like, I mean, she told you she's good, but probably deep down inside, she's like, yeah, I get it. You're a fair weather friend. You'd care less about supporting me and some of these local folks.
Yep.
But yeah, you do you, man. You do you.
But
It's
man,
kind
I
of how you used
do
to respond when you were a pastor, right? When people
do
would come to
you.
you and you're like, hey, there's this my nephew's now in the worship band. You know where this is going. And they got a new kids director over there. And man, like once they put in that whole new like slide, that the kids go down, down into kid land, on Sunday mornings. And I'm just they probably could use some more volunteers. And it's not you, it's us. We want to be able to help some. And then right, you had to be able to be like, yeah, I totally get it. We love you guys. But
Do
deep down
you.
inside, you were like, I hope you choke on that coffee.
You're trying to muster up this kingdom mindset. Meanwhile, it's just going to be a bunch of work for you to fill this slot.
Oh, dude. These are the things of life, folks. Welcome to the Larkcast, the
Welcome to the
conversations
Larkcast.
of life, and the unfiltered talk about the life of faith and the God of grace.
Yep.
Where you're seeing grace, where you're not. Where you're needing to hit the Adam alarm, and where you're not finding the need to do so. Instead, you're just finding freedom. This is the
Yeah, and
journey before
our
us.
new
I felt like that
format's
was a good
been
commercial.
That was
They
great.
you cut it
I
off there at the
interrupted
end, so
you
I'm
at
gonna
the
have to
end, but
yeah, I'm
it
gonna have
was
to
good.
redo it. But yeah,
Yeah, and our new format has just been like, man, what are the conversations we're having? What are the things we're seeing on socials or in the news or, um,
yeah,
common, you know, experiences, ideas that everyone's kind of kicking around.
yep.
It's been fun. I like this. I like this new freestyle, free flowing
Freestyle. Yeah.
format.
And I'm gonna say something that's a little controversial
Oh,
among some in the church world. Uh
you even emphasize the IA on that controversial. I like that.
well, yeah, it's
Making
controversial.
yeah,
It is.
it is controversial.
Oh, it's so I got this idea that I've been kicking around for a long time, and it's a little bit of like the secret to the madness in a sense. The secret sauce within Lark is I don't think Jesus I don't think he enrolled us in a lifetime of sermons when we became a believer.
Hot take.
Hot take. Yeah,
No, but he did
I
that,
don't
right?
no, I think he just did a few like
Oh,
right
he
there at the
didn't.
beginning, and then he never. Luke says that he only taught in parables from then on, for
Hmm.
like the next 3+ years. Yeah, just a lot of eating and drinking and storytelling.
I thought he was
So
like posting up at the synagogue, and then he got kicked out, and then he like did a building campaign, got his own
yeah, yeah,
building, and was like
yeah.
Saturdays 9 and 10:45.
I always hear that. You always hear like, no, he went to the synagogue, and I'm like, yeah, I think he did a couple times, but once he shared, they tried to murder him. They didn't offer him a rental agreement. it's, it's,
Yeah, they weren't.
uh, they weren't exactly like, yeah, you should come back. But here's the thought. I'll make it fast. I I think we need, which I think the scriptures, provide us. It's not like God gave us like his memoir, like, hey, you need to read this every morning for the rest of your life, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I gave you something to help you read and learn more and see more about who I am. But the life that I've created you for is actual relationship. It's like ongoing conversation called prayer, right? Listening and asking and conversing. And I think so much of what we learn is found in like the conversations with each other. I definitely believe that's where we learn to live free. It's far more in our sharing of this than our hearing about it.
Hmm.
Um, and so our thing was always like, dude, just trying to give like a foundation is what I always wanted to do. Just help people get like a good foundation of what is true and really just free them up to just go be a friend the way Jesus was. Go love on people. Go converse. Um, Go pass on good news. Pass on relief. Find relief. And I think that's kind of where this format for me is like really special is because it really gets into like just this life of learning, but it's learning from the spirit in and through conversations and also just being able to filter all the stuff that's being thrown at us every day. I don't think you learn that in in sermons. It's it's conversation. That's proof even with me and you. Like this is a conversation.
Yeah. Well, like a conversation, broadly we're having, as a community, and we're trying to on this show probably bring up the conversation that everybody's, having, to a
Yeah.
degree, which is probably why you're tuning in, is that this connects to your life, your wrestlings, conversations
Yeah.
you're having, which is what Jesus actually did. It was he taught very situationally, someone had a question, someone came to him by night, people tried picking a fight with him. It wasn't this like, show up 9 and 10:45. I'm going to, break down, you
Yep.
know, expositionally,
We're gonna go
this
through
all
Leviticus,
all
folks.
these scrolls and the, you
Yeah, he
know,
never did that.
Septuagint. Um, he did do that one time, and then they tried rushing him to the edge of
Yeah, all he did was read it.
a cliff, not a cliff.
Yeah,
I added
yeah.
a T to cliff there.
That's all right, man.
Um, yeah,
There's
and I mean,
grace.
I feel like that's where, right? That's where you really get to flesh out your ideas, hear from others, get other, perspectives. And
Yeah.
it's in conversation, it's the things that are you're most, wondering about, curious about, thinking through. You're able to, people who know you and love you are able to be like, yeah, dude, like, I think you're bringing like a lot of anxiety and unbelief to this. And, remember this, remember that. Hey, why is that the case? And then you're able to like really kind of,
Yeah.
bring it out. Yeah, I feel like conversation, friendship, it's the
It's
best
it,
format.
man.
But I mean, to have those
Where
things,
it's at.
to have some, I, I don't, I think the gospel is a conversation and it's not. Like there's something fixed and done. There is a reality there that's painted in the scriptures, in the words of Jesus, in his actions, the things he's
Oh, yeah.
done.
And amen.
But in terms of fleshing that out and thinking through it and all the aspects of life, it's very
Yeah.
much a conversation. The reform crew would not be happy with that. They would more prefer it to be just a body of doctrine and theology that everyone ascribes to and repeats and has the same language. And then
Yeah.
you're getting in now to your catechisms and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a convo last week with someone that said basically just said, like, I don't think you understand. Like, there's no way you're going to live free and keep living free apart from a discipline of reading the word on a daily basis. And I'm like, um, so just out of curiosity, how did we get here? How did the good news spread and how did it carry through for the last couple thousand years where it's all over the world? Because I don't know if you know this, dude, but the average person, as in the vast majority of the world, as in almost all of it, didn't have a copy of the scriptures for 1400 years after Jesus.
Yeah, and think about
Yeah.
like people during.
So it's just one of those things where you're like, that's, yeah, reading the scriptures, amen, all for it. But you just turn it into something that it needs to be that it's not, and then tied it to what you're going to become when the history of the church tells otherwise. And it was just
Yeah,
more of like, man, you're free of that, bro. You don't have to carry that weight, man.
yeah, just I think it's what you see more in the scriptures is like let the word of Christ richly dwell in you, meaning you're kind of like letting it happen. So like you know, as the Trinity, as the Spirit is,
Yeah.
this inner dialogue that we all carry, also known as prayer, communion with God. There's something spiritual about us, and those that inner dialogue is very much it's
Amen.
that, right? And so um you know, ideas and phrases and passages and stuff is kind of just stewing, in the brain and in the heart. And you're taking time to be careful how you're here. You're considering those things, you're processing those things, you're letting it
Yeah.
kind of seep into, every area of thinking, being, doing, right? You're letting it dictate what is, reality about him and
Yeah.
about you and about what you're experiencing, how you're feeling, about a certain thing. It should encourage you, it should challenge you, at times. But this whole idea of like, the whole like John Piper, like eat this book every day, even when it tastes like cardboard, and like just wake up and man,
Yeah.
I got to
Yeah.
get
It's
through
just
this
like,
chapter. I got to get through, this whole thing. Like
yeah, the
that ain't it,
vast
man.
majority of church history, that was not the story. Um, there was a story though of the living Christ in us, right? And that dialogue you're talking about. Because here's the crazy thing in the scriptures, John 1, the word is, yeah, it has a name, and his name is Jesus. He's the one we live in. The word lives, right? We live in the word, and the word lives in us. And amen, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just such a beautiful invitation, man, to recline in something like that. And by all means, let's go to the scriptures because they testify to the truth.
Yeah.
And again, John 14, the truth has a name.
Hmm.
His name is Jesus. So this Bible I'm carrying around, it's true because it testifies to the truth.
Hmm.
And I think that journey, man, that's in front of us is just this ongoing dialogue with him and with each other. That's where we're learning, I believe, to live free. So yes, by all means, let's look to the scriptures and find a foundation in what is true. But I don't think the rest of our lives is the constant weekly learning of something new. It's the learning to live in what's already true, what we've already known.
Yeah.
That's so much of the journey. And
Well,
that to me
and
is where this comes in, is because every day you're getting hit with something that's opposite of that. And you know what I mean? You have to go like, wait a
from
second.
people who are reading the same scriptures.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what's crazy. I had a friend recently. He was just like, "Hey man, like based on what you know about me and, the conversations we've had, what should I read? You know, what would you have me like read, or encourage me to read or suggest I read?" And I was just like, "Nothing." Like nothing, dude. Because you've been going your whole entire freaking life.
Yeah.
You know a lot of it. I would rather sit down with you and talk about, you know, just what are the assumptions and ideas about what God is like based on what's been handed to you, and then look at it from a standpoint of, of conversation and your life and like where you're at and how you're seeing things. Now, then we can get, you know,
Yeah.
into the scriptures. And that's the tricky thing, man. That's
Yeah.
the tricky thing about all this is there's so many different conclusions, base assumptions, schools of thought, and paradigms, and it's all coming out of the same, copy of the scriptures, which I think probably at that point has led a lot of people to be like, man, screw this. I'm just going to walk away from it. It's like, who can really know? Like, there's all this
Yeah.
like infighting and all these like, ideas and stuff. So I get that, for sure.
Yep. Yeah. You got to filter in the human condition, man, within it for sure. I know one of those things that was a big hot button just a few days ago was a tweet by Rick Warren that the in the
Is he
church
still
world,
wearing
right?
Hawaiian
Famous,
shirts? You think?
probably, man. He's been wearing them since like 1980.
It's kind of his brand at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, California Saddleback Church, big deal in the church world. Wrote the book Purpose Driven Life, which was a big thing for years, and seems like a good dude by all means. Uh, I personally wouldn't align with him on a number of things I believe the scriptures are showing us, but again, definitely a brother, right? Um, and he shot out this tweet where he was just, kind of referencing like I think from what I was gathering, like it's definitely something that's really, tied into the political scene right now, which let's just be honest, that's a challenge for a number of people. Uh, and he said, in John 19, they crucified Jesus with two others, one on each side and Jesus in the middle. The guys on both sides were thieves. If you're looking for the real Jesus, not a character disfigured by partisan motivations, you'll find him in the middle, not on either side.
Hmm.
And, with the whole like deconstruction movement, that's such a big thing over the last few years. And let me just be honest, not all of it's good. We've seen that, but a lot of it is good, right? Like
Yeah.
deconstructing things that were handed to us that weren't true by all means. Amen. Um, but
It's just
it seems like,
rethinking and repentance by any other name. But
yes,
it's a junk drawer term, and there's too broad of experiences with rethinking and deconstruction to give it just one, name.
100%. But it seems like it's in that camp where you'll find like people who have moved right, or like, no, Jesus is here. He stands on these things, these issues only. He's anti, you know what I mean? Point to the other now. And then if you have people who have went right the opposite direction. No, he stands on these things culturally on the left. And Jesus is opposite of, point to the other now.
Yeah.
And then there's
It's
a
like
big move of
capitalism.
people,
It's right here in the scriptures. Look, right here.
yeah, right. And and then you have somebody else who's like, no, it's communism. It's like, and then you have somebody who's, of course, it is a big swath of people who are like, no, he's in the middle. He's in the middle. Jesus is in the middle. And so I was in some, because I'm just always in conversations every week. Uh, and I heard cases, right, for all three of these. And but the more I look at it, dude, I'm like, I think this might be a moment of like hitting the atom alarm, right? Because the old Adam at its core wants a sense of control. And so it wants to be able to say, no, I am right because of these things that I believe, say, and do, right? How I vote, etc. You are, right, wrong. And again, you can find that in all three of those camps, left, right, middle. But when you look to Jesus, it's like, I, yeah, he's not standing on your side over here or your side alone over here, or let's just be honest, in the middle. He's a whole different. He's just he exists. He transcends all of this. He exists outside of all of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's like it's a different category. It's like it's not. It's almost like saying like, is it A? Is it B? Is it C? And it's like, well, it's none. It's actually numbers. It's
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
something else.
I like that. Is it black? Is it white? No, it's grass. It's like,
Yes.
and we've talked about this before. You run into that, Christian brother or sister that wants to form and fashion their company after the values of the kingdom, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to make a business, a kingdom business. And it's like, well, if I mean,
Oh, dude, if I had a dollar for every time I've parroted that line, I would be funding my own ministry.
it's like, well, okay, then you got to pay everybody the way that the vineyard owner paid them in the parable of the vineyard. They got a crew showing
Yeah,
up at 6 a.m. and a crew showing up a half hour before quitting time, and they all got the
get
same
paid.
wage. Like, you're not going to have a sustainable business that actually supports people's lives and
No.
families on that ethic. It's a completely different thing altogether. And the kingdom
Yeah.
is baked into the world like leaven inside of a lump of dough. It's buried like a treasure in the middle of an entire field. And some of it's
Yeah.
thorny and can't be developed, and some of it's beautiful and can. Just a completely different thing.
And he's just
Um,
as present in what's, thorny. That's what, well,
yeah,
no, no, no. It gets, when in those places, especially where it's, rocky ground, like the seed gets gobbled up, man, by the birds. And it's like, okay, Jesus is a master storyteller. He's describing what the kingdom's like. He doesn't use birds and seeds by accident. You know what the one thing a bird's digestive system cannot break down? A seed. So yeah, it'll gobble it up.
it's
And you
kind of
know what
like
it'll do
corn.
then? It'll drop it down again and again and again and again. It's in everything that is needed to sustain life. All the essence of life is in the seed. Again, another point of like not coincidence. So you're right, dude. It's a whole other. It's not black or
Yeah.
white. It's grass.
And I get it, man. Like, everybody wants to, you know, to fit in. No one wants
Yeah.
like no one wants conflict unless you're just like towing party lines and just spitting off and your whole entire friend group is just of one sort of like mindset. Um, but for a lot of people, their friends are very diverse and those conversations, especially now, can be really, really, you know, challenging for sure.
Yep.
And not everybody likes conflict. And so, finding something to where you're able to just like sit, in the middle and, not get into it, or whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, Jesus is kind of, touted by the left and the right for their ideas. And it can get, it can get a little confusing. At the same time, I feel like he challenges, ideas on the left, and the right, which Warren's concluding like he's in the middle. I just think it's something, like you said, it's completely different, totally different
Yeah.
category.
Yeah. Because I mean, if we want to get frank here, Jesus isn't he's not in the middle on anything that he declares to be true,
Sure.
right? He's pretty just like, no, this is true and good. This isn't. There's no like, well, it's in the middle. Like, no, it's not. He's not. And that's okay. That's not him in any way uh being arrogant. It's him just being God and lovingly showing us what is good and beautiful, right? It's like if somebody's telling you like, yeah, dude, listen, Russ, you want to head to Miami, man, you just get on I-75 and head north. Like they can be sincere in that, right? They can believe that that's true. But if I get on 75 and head north, I'm not going to Miami, no matter how much I want to get there. Like, no,
I
to
mean,
get there, I got to
you're
get
going
on
to
75
Tampa and
south.
St. Pete, which I think is a better move than Miami, but
100%. Well, then I
definitely
just
not
hop
going
on
to get to
75 and head
Miami.
north.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's something inviting in that. Like we the old Adam has 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 been crucified in Christ. Let him stay dead. We don't need to reach for categories to be able to try to stand on. It's
Well, and two,
there's
like for
something beautiful
me,
just getting lost in who Jesus is and going, well, no, this is true and this isn't, and from what he shows me, and wherever camp you want to put that in, you can put that in, but I don't need to.
yeah.
I think there's just an invitation in that is what I'm learning over the years.
Yeah. And I think everyone's saying, like, right now, the most important thing is for you to take a side politically. And then we tie that to faithfulness, to
Yeah.
Jesus and not being like, a coward or, you know, fearing to get thrown into, one camp versus the other or, yeah, being ashamed, so to speak. And that kind of like those kind of ideas have come from people who, have definitely like aligned Jesus with, their side. My thing is like I just think there's better conversations. There's more deeper,
Hmm.
more important conversations. I'm fine being like, I wouldn't say a chameleon, so to speak, but just like not feeling like I gotta like stick a flag in the ground on certain things because there's things that I would much rather
Yeah.
talk to you about that I think are far more important than, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very easy to forget in Christian circles. Um, very easy to forget, very easy to miss the fact that the Apostle Paul was very clear when he stated that I sought to know nothing among you but Christ and him crucified.
There you go.
Nothing, he said. Well, what about, religion and, creed, cult, and conduct, all these things? He's like, yeah, yeah, Jesus buried that. Let's stay buried. Well, but ethics, yeah, ethics, all for it. Ethics are to human behavior what logic is to human thought. They help us see what should and ought to be, by all means. All for holding up what's good and beautiful. But let's not confuse walking in those things as what makes us one with God, because they don't. That's why I think Paul was after the heart of the conversation, the root of it all. That's where Jesus taught, because the fruit will come, but that's his business, not our business.
Yeah.
So I think there's just a beauty, like you're saying, man. Like if you're gonna put your flag in the ground, put it in the good news of Jesus, our
Yeah,
life,
and
our
dude,
death, our
fight like
resurrection.
hell. Fight like hell to um to not just get in the echo chamber, man. As hard as it is, I know a lot of people that just like pride themselves in unfollowing people and,
Yeah,
just trimming down your friend group and, all
yeah,
this other stuff. And I find I I find kind of like a beauty, almost like a comfort, in having friends that are just all over the place on certain issues. Now, I need to be honest, you know, with
yeah,
them, and any good relationship allows for that, for disagreeing and those kinds of things. I mean, if someone wants to just, I mean, dude, some of the crazy people say the craziest stuff
yeah.
on
Like,
socials.
yeah,
And they're just like, okay, like you make that statement. If like, well, if you don't agree with me on this, then unfollow me right now and F you, and it's just like, dude, what?
I'm
Like,
standing for King Jesus.
that's
It's
nuts.
like, wait, what?
Well, I mean, like it's all over the place. I would just say like, man, fight like hell to you know, to just keep people, various people,
Yeah,
in your life. Um, it's good. It's
yeah.
it's rich. It's kind of boring when everyone around you just thinks the same way.
Oh, dude, you ain't kidding. Yeah, I have friends from all persuasions, man, and have great conversations. And I'm honest with what I believe
Yeah,
is
and those are
good.
the best ones.
And then afterwards we laugh and, hey man, you want a beer? And there's things they've shown me that I didn't see, and there's things that I've
Yeah.
shown them that they didn't see. And I think that's the beauty of it. And you know, like you talk about fight like hell, like one thing I think that's helpful is when you can look around and see is there a fruit of love here?
Hmm.
Because Jesus was pretty clear, man, about the invitation of stepping into the life of him, which is the life of loving and praying for your enemies. Okay. Now he's not shy about what's good and true, right? He's not bending on those things because what value would that be to us? Um, but he also at the same time, while calling something out, still loves the person he's calling out. And for me, that's one of those things where like everybody's putting these flags in the ground and then all these responses to it. But I'm looking at it and going, and both camps can be flying this flag of Jesus with it. But there's just this despising of the other. And it's like, man, I get standing up against something that's not true and good and pointing that out. But what about asking him for the love of the other while doing so? And it's almost like that just gets ignored. And we, you know what I mean? We pat ourselves on the back for, man, I'm standing with King Jesus on this. And it's like, yeah, not that approach, man.
Well, it just goes, I mean, politics is a
Sorry, it's just
religion,
not it.
the
Oh
religion of
yeah.
politics. It's the
Yeah.
creed cult conduct thing, you know? And if, I mean, you have to see that civil politics, is a religion. You have beliefs,
Yeah.
things that you need to ascribe to on your side, and you cancel, judge, look at others with contempt that, hold different perspectives. And then we always take like the most extreme version of the other side and
Yeah.
say, like, look, there it is.
Right.
Like the
And
most
again, there's
extreme
some loony
version of the
stuff out
right, the
there. I
most
get it.
extreme version of the left. Um, yeah, it's just it's so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, step into the conversation, right? And see where it goes. And you never know where that's going to happen, man, or like the doors that will open up. I mean, we saw that recently with the Kid Rock Joe Rogan interview that I know has been like a pretty popular thing in Christian circles. Like Kid Rock, got to share like his testimony, man, of uh, new faith in Jesus and right, amen. And he's in this conversation with Rogan, and it gets to this point where he's like, Rogan's kind of questioning, like he's for Jesus, but sort of sees him more kind of like Time magazine, you know what I mean? Like the most influential person in the world, but is
Mm,
he God in the flesh,
sure.
right? Like, is he my life, my death, my resurrection? Um, and there comes this point in the conversation where, you know, Kid Rock's like, man, well, man, I can show you Jesus. And Rogan's like, yeah, yeah, man. Like, and then, and then he's like, I can introduce you to my pastor. And I was like, oh, brother, dude. And I love like his heart. Like I love Kid Rock's like heart to share and get into that. And I mean, it was such a cool thing. And um, but it was just one of those moments where like, as soon as he said, like, I'll introduce you to my pastor, it was like closed door,
Yeah.
nah, that's all right. Like he wasn't interested, man. But he was interested in Kid Rock and his story.
Yeah, because Kid Rock's on his show for
Yeah.
a reason.
And I
Like
think sometimes my point is like
he ain't inviting your pastor there.
no, 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 no. And I think sometimes like if you've come out of that world, you get sort of trained in this idea of like, no, dude, like there's all these like teaching points that you've got to hit and all this clarity that you've got to bring. And you sort of work through your bullet list and it's like, I can't do all that, but my pastor can. And I would just say, like, man, don't you don't have to believe that.
But that's culturally, that's sort of like where that leads because you have this one dude who hops on the stage. He's the resident, sort of like expert in this whole deal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. I
it's
I a
like, yeah, dude,
hundred
hey,
percent get where he's
just
coming
come
from.
and listen to this dude.
Yes. I've done that in the past, and I will honestly say, like, I train, dude. I equip people for that,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh man, you get that conversation, you just call me,
And you're
right?
nervous too. Dude, and you're on a freaking the largest podcast of the world, and you're like,
Yeah.
man, I don't want to sound stupid or,
Borrowing from like big popular church culture in the past, dude, like even being trained by them. Like we had a thing that we used to teach at the church I pastored that I planted in Asheville. Um, you invest and invite
yeah,
will bring the information,
sure.
will bring the clarity.
Yeah.
And so again, I 100% get where he's coming from. Um, I guess my encouragement is like these conversations are all around us,
Hmm.
these debates, right? These various ideas of God and life and purpose and peace and freedom and just know like wherever you are in the journey, like if you just believed in Jesus for the first time yesterday, well, man, you've got a story. So like in First Peter 3, where it talks about like always be ready, you know what I mean? To share. It's like it's not always be ready to be able to answer people's every question. Like, no, man, just be ready to share your story.
Yeah. And there's
And
no way to
and then
get
walk with them from there.
and there's no way to get good at that conversation because friendship isn't art, it's
Yeah.
certainly there's no like manual, for it.
No.
Um, Having conversations about, just even just life in general and in particular the gospel. There's
Yeah.
no way to do it other than just jumping in, man. It's you learn as you go.
Yeah. Just jump in, man. Be honest, right? Be brutally honest with your own struggles and your newfound faith and this is just where I'm at. And
Yeah.
know that the last thing your neighbor needs, your coworker needs, your child needs, um, the last thing they need, man, is another Christian tangling up the good news of Jesus and stories of how they're conquering sin. and
Yeah,
make it.
that or like,
You
you're
just,
supposed to be the one with all the answers and you're just bringing like these truths and this doctrine. I wish early on, like somebody normal in the church world would have just been like, dude, just be honest about like what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, what's making sense to you right now. You
no,
know, if you don't have the answer to a question, just be like, man, I don't freaking know. You just felt like so much pressure to like get it right and like
yeah.
figure it all out.
If anything, like I don't know. But man, let's go look into it. I'll look into it with you. I'm just saying it really can be that simple. And I think the key just, just to sort of pull this together here is it's kind of like what we were saying earlier. It's just always remembering that Jesus isn't, it's not, black, white, or is it gray? It's like, no, dude, he's grass. it's, it's, it's a whole other, whole other category, man. That
He's grass,
transcends
bro.
all of this.
Homegrown ditchweed, baby.
Just, you just gotta inhale the freedom, bro, and hold it. Yeah,
Just hold it.
this discipleship, man. This is all about puff,
Coughing is
puff, give.
encouraged.
Puff, puff, give, dude. That's discipleship.
Oh man, this is
Oh
getting out of
man,
hand.
stay encouraged, folks. Use that Adam alarm. Live free. Till next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.